Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Fallen London. Today we're going to be having a look at March's exceptional story, Slobgollion. But as always, at the start of a new exceptional story, I encourage you to play these yourself. Spoilers ahead, become an exceptional friend. Not only do you get access to these stories, you get extended actions, more cards in your deck, and various other little benefits. But without further ado, let's jump in. It's a lovely day for a trip to the morgue. Concord Square has just received another delivery from the stolen river, and the slabs will be packed. Mrs. Plenty's carnival and the labyrinth of tigers can wait. Their exhibits don't leave. But the dead rarely stay dead in Fallen London, and members of the public queue for a chance to glimpse famous corpses. What brings you to the morgue on this fine afternoon? Though we have a few options here. Curiosity. Spectators can pay a penny to look at the bodies, but don't touch. Kin. The constables have called upon you to identify someone. Is that our aunt? That is our aunt. Skill. You happen to be one of the corpses, but you'll have to mate in 2 moves. That's our boatman's opponent's skill. Skill and stature. You happen to be a famous corpse. Damn Huffman for printing your name this morning. Or thirst and misheard directions. Wait a minute. The morgue? This isn't a queue for the pub? I mean, I kind of want to do the I am a famous corpse. Let's do it. Like a fading dream, your recollection slips away. You were sitting across from the boatman, playing chess as you floated downstream. And now you're lined up in the city's common dead. Londoners, living ones, mill through the morgue, gawking and standing on tiptoe for a better view. Artists bring sketchbooks. Young couples bring each other, clinging tight, with not unpleasant shivers. Urchins lighten unguarded pockets. Some corpses will never draw another breath, and the churchyards will eventually break ground to open new graves. Cadavers such as yourself, however, might stir when the crowd least expects, and onlookers gasp with delight when you move. Wait, we bury people in Fallen London? Some corpses will never draw another breath? Is that possible? Okay, interesting. I was under the impression that everybody in Fallen London came back, up to the point where your body is so broken you have to go to the tomb colonies. Before the dead return to life, sometimes hours elapse, sometimes days, and sometimes even weeks. Smelling salts are all but mandatory, and the mortuary is especially ripe this afternoon. With so many drowned corpses on display, it's as though a fishmonger's whole stock has gone off. Flies buzz everywhere. Well, let's examine the batch from the stolen river. Set apart from the rest, one cadaver, with suction cups, catches your eye. Rubbery men aren't usually displayed for public viewing. Neither are claymen nor ratus faber, or most of the Neath's denizens. Human corpses might not reliably come back, or even reliably stay in one place, but non-human corpses reliably don't. They never open their eyes again, and nothing reanimates their limbs. But this corpse was caught in the nets when Concord Square dredged the river. Now it's sprawled here on a slab, still entangled with rope and seaweed. Boneless, bloated, soft as brie, it oozes a clear yellow fluid that assaults your sinuses and repels the crowd. Nobody else wants to stand very close, which is why they didn't notice its tentacles twitch. Where rubbery men go after death, it isn't the far shore. Did you imagine that? No. Now the body is twitching again, Gelatinous flesh trembles like nervous aspic. Tentacles flop back and forth, struggling to coil in your direction, and a spluttering gurgle escapes from... Are those lips? Thlu, thlu, thlu. The corpse burbles, syllables bubbling out with thick phlegm. So we can either lean closer to listen. It's trying to speak. How extraordinary. Or we can get away from this thing. Rubbery men don't come back from the dead. Something is horribly wrong. Let's lean closer and listen. The stench is overpowering. Rotten fish and raw sewage. And that's just the residue from the river. Suction cups cling to your arms. Clammy, cold, too weak to pull you closer. But you oblige. Thlu, thlu, thlu. The corpse keeps spluttering. It's agitated, thrashing on the slab. Black eyeballs bulging when it finally splurts out, Slobgollion. You don't hear anything else after that, except for the screaming, of course. Other people have noticed. They point, faint, shriek. Constables jostle around the body, shoving you aside as they tackle its flailing tentacles. So much for a relaxing trip to the morgue. You have witnessed a most unusual resurrection. Oh, an invitation to an interrogation. Concord Square makes no official statement, but the morgue is temporarily closed. People gossip, although not as much as they might, and the Gazette doesn't print anything, as if a rubbery resurrection isn't worth reporting. You're beginning to wonder if you did imagine the scene. After all, when you receive... You're beginning to wonder if you did imagine the scene after all, when you receive a letter from the constabulary. Let's read the letter. In light of recent events. This isn't how the constables typically operate. No friendly truncheons knocking at your door, no jackboots on the doorstep. Just a brief letter requesting, not even demanding, your presence at your convenience to discuss the incident and collect your eyewitness account. Despite the dearth of detail, you can read between the lines. Suddenly, the Gazette's silence speaks volumes. Doubt Street has, shall we say, an understanding with the constabulary. We have to travel to Concord Square to continue this exceptional story. Well, let's travel. Concord Square is, around here somewhere. Oh no. I do love this map of Fallen London, it's very fun. It's all the way up here, good lord. The one place I wasn't looking. Here we are, summoned to Concord Square. Concord Square is a labyrinth of holding cells. Offices, interrogation chambers, dormitories, arsenals and evidence lockers. To mention the kennels. How many people have gone in and never come out? Those numbers are confidential. Let's report to Sergeant Holly, one of London's very finest. No doubt. Unfortunate situation at the morgue, says the sergeant. Ugly, unpleasant, grotesque, and damn inconvenient. See these papers? He thumps a great stack on his desk. Case files, closed, everything nice and tidy, wrapped up with a bow. Until now. Now they're open again. That dead Rubbery man is connected to 4 homicides. Already sorted, mind you. Solved. One of our detectives wants to grill the squid right down the hall. Be my guest. Ollie leans back and lights a cigar. Don't wait for me. Can't stand calamari. Oh, Officers L and Officers J push past you in the corridor. This is going to be interesting, isn't it? Hundreds of cases are solved every month and then filed in the archives for future reference. Most often, they're referenced only by rodents and mould, as copious gaps in the bookkeeping can attest. But sometimes there's cause for an actual detective to review the rat-eaten records, sift through the spores, and brave the dust. Let's enter the police archives. Sergeant Holly has directed you to a specific door in the labyrinth. Murders and muggings and missing persons. Criminal syndicates and smuggling rings. Anarchist plots against Queen and country. This is the Fifth City's underbelly. Documented, dated, and alphabetized according to Concord Square's peerless internal metrics. After meeting their quotas, of course, the constables don't tend to review the grisly records. Only the most implacable detective would bother to wade through these blood-soaked filing systems. And that's precisely who you find rummaging in the cabinets. "You got the letter? Good," she says. "We have a corpse to discuss." Concord Square might pay her wages, but the implacable detective motivates herself. Without her curiosity and willingness to dig, nobody else would have contacted you. Indeed, her current research occupies a legal limbo. Younger officers, less decorated, would have already earned reprimands and been commanded to back down. Let's discuss the Rubbery corpse. What can she tell you about its resurrection? "Comb through these files," says the detective, "and you won't find another case like this. Not one. But the brass at the top doesn't like red tape. They'd rather sweep it all under the rug. Holly agreed to look the other way if I handle the paperwork and the press. Mr. Huffman is an old friend, thankfully." Her eyes are bloodshot. How much sleep has she lost? She's surrounded by journals and ledgers, maps and manifests recently extracted from the archives. "I've been pulling threads, following leads, but you were there. Tell me everything. What did you see, touch, taste, smell, hear?" You're being questioned by the implacable detective. So we can either divulge every detail that you remember, describe the morgue, the slab, the corpse, down to the last suction cup, or we can withhold certain privileged information. Privileged meaning, in this case, anything you think the cops shouldn't know. Well, I am a friend to the constables, so let's tell them everything. I am also a massive fan of the implacable detective. The implacable detective listens attentively, transcribing your testimony word for word and nodding along. "I've already interviewed everyone else from the morgue. Only a few people saw anything, but I've managed to reconstruct the scene." She unrolls a floor plan, each slab diagrammed. The placement of bodies, deceased or otherwise, matches your own recollection perfectly. "This isn't a normal investigation. It's bigger than Concord Square. Life, death, immortality. Everything we know could change." She snaps her fingers. "Like that. You were the closest person to the corpse. Whatever you witnessed, the smallest detail might prove significant." Are you standing, even now, at the precipice of a new age of science? Well, we know that she works for the Dillman Club, so this is remarkably interesting. Let's start at the top here and discuss the relevant case files. Sergeant Holly mentioned 4 connected homicides. Florence and Florence. Ring any bells? A little shop in Vale Garden. Fine amber. Smuggled amber. One of our men was working the case undercover until he turned up dead. So did both of the shop's proprietors. The crime scene photographs aren't pretty. The detective spreads them out, along with other evidence. Forged receipts, unbalanced books, logs from the SS Halcyon, and a coroner's report for Captain Whitaker. Our fourth victim, Whitaker, moved the amber. There's also another name on the receipts. McIntosh. Mr Martin McIntosh. Unusual name for a rubbery man, but it looks good on paper. Lurks don't ask questions. You can guess Sergeant Holly's top suspect. Let's discuss the nature of life and death. The implacable detective has had many occasions to study many cadavers. Death works differently in the Neath. Humans come back, but not rubbery men. Why is that? Why do some humans come back, while others stay dead? Science hasn't explained it yet, neither has philosophy. I've spent countless nights in the morgue, waiting, watching, just to see the bodies start to breathe again, to measure the exact moment when life returns. But the data I've gathered still isn't enough. There's a gap. In the charts, in the calculations, in the chemistry and test results and raw numbers, her notebooks are here to consult. They don't provide answers. Somewhere between this world and the next. Let's discuss the nature of rubbery anatomy. So much is still unknown. Even basic biological functions are enigmatic. The Dean of Xenotheology may be well regarded. Amber artwork may entice respectable collectors. The tentacled entrepreneur may own enough factories to blacken the lungs of a generation. But the medical field is a desolate waste, littered with apocrypha and bogus skeletons, wherever the rubbery men are concerned. We know they're not human, obviously, says the detective, but people don't realize what not human means. They have organs we still haven't named. It's likely they have more we haven't discovered. Even between two individuals, their biologies might not be analogous. What sounds do they hear? What flavors do they taste? When they dream, what do they experience? What about when they die? Let's discuss why you're still here. You've supplied your eyewitness account. What does Concord Square want? Do you remember what it's like to die? I don't. Nobody does. We remember death's country, not how we got there, and not how we got here again. The journey itself is a fog. In that fog, something moves us. What does it move? Not our souls. We don't need those to make passage. There's another component still undiscovered that must determine where we go. If we can go. She finally packs all the files into a briefcase. Mr. McIntosh may be our Rosetta Stone. I want to learn everything about his death, but he won't talk to me, and he did talk to you. Perhaps you can encourage him again. Communicating with a rubbery man is never straightforward, but a rubbery corpse? The prime suspect in 4 homicides? No wonder the implacable detective needs your assistance. The case is unprecedented. Your findings could shake the 5th city. But what motivates you to investigate the threshold between life and death? So we can either have duty, when Concord Square calls, you answer. Curiosity, you want to know. Power, imagine the leverage. Art, imagine the inspiration. Sympathy, for the rubbery men, to understand them better. Faith, everyone has their own. Science, shall we put a few hypotheses to the test? Geography, the Dillman Club is a geographical society, after all. Aha, there it is, the Dillman Club lapel badge. Suspicion, something smells fishy, not just the morgue. subterfuge, certain opportunities may present themselves. Or boredom. Why not? You have time to kill. Let's go with geography. All 4 victims were strangled. Suction cups can leave a nasty mark, says the detective. The first 3 died ashore, but Captain Whitaker's murder coincided with the sinking of the Halcyon. We recovered his body, along with the rubbery corpse. Simple motive. McIntosh wanted to eliminate the smuggling ring. Then the shipwreck eliminated him. All the evidence points to the same conclusion. She escorts you through a doorway. You're back in the labyrinth, turning corners, ascending and descending stairs. You pass gauntlets of bloodthirsty hounds and armed guards. Such a dangerous criminal can't be discharged. It should go without saying. We're holding Mr. McIntosh until I'm satisfied. After that, Judge Wicks can rule. Let's enter the prisoner's holding cell. Let's see what Mr. Martin McIntosh has to say for himself. The implacable detective ushers you into a padded chamber, temporarily repurposed. Beakers and flasks bubble. Buckets brim with pulsating amber. She begins to unpack her briefcase, transferring files from the archives to the casework already assembled here. Good evening, Mr. McIntosh, she says. I've brought a colleague. Do you remember? You've spoken before. We'd like to discuss the events leading up to your death. The rubbery corpse in the corner doesn't reply. Not verbally, at least. But his tentacles twitch, his eyes bulge. Is he looking at you? Death takes its toll on the body, and resurrection isn't always reimbursement. The rubbery corpse is still a corpse, rancid, bruised, aromatic. Light hasn't returned to his eyes, but their black blobs shimmer with an oily sheen. How will you communicate? Increase your rubbery dialogue to 3 by selecting different communication styles. Certain combinations will encourage Mr. McIntosh to discuss the case, but the wrong combinations will simply confuse him. You can select the same style more than once. So we can either do speech, roll out the red carpet for the Queen's English, touch, rubbery men have highly sensitive membranes, or we can pantomime, signs, gestures, postures. Much can be said for striking a pose. Let's start with speech. The Queen's English. In this case, the red carpet is your tongue. You string words together like pearls. You fashion phrases fit for royal ears and common ears. Uncommon ears, human or inhuman ears. London is filled with diverse citizens, and you are fluent enough to commune with them all. Well, with a goodly percentage. With a goodly living percentage. Mr. McIntosh gapes like a goldfish under duress. Okay, let's try speaking to him again. Okay, that hasn't changed anything. Right, let's try touch. Shake someone's hand, and their grip might convey anything from a welcome to a warning. Shake a rubbery man's tentacles, and the range of expression is subtler still. Palpitate those tentacles, and you'll probe meanings deeper than words can express. Meanings deeper than flesh. Muscular, vascular, lymphatic, nervous, punctuated by pressure points and underscored with arteries and cartilage. Not that you're necessarily prepared to appreciate every tactile nuance yourself. This is rather like plunging your arms up to the elbow into a heap of rotten fish. Oh dear. Let's consider his response. In a dialogue, one party speaks, the other listens. It's your turn to listen. Slobgollion. Consonants are a battle. Vowels aren't much better, but the rubbery corpse writhes and splutters, coughs and wheezes, contorting to enunciate the cry. Slobgollion. It's not really a cry. It's more like a very loud, very wet pop. A fluid drips from the ceiling and down the walls. The implacable detective wipes her face. Vital essences, she says, examining the gobs stuck to her handkerchief. They're not usually black. These are imbued with death. Mr. McIntosh gurgles again and slaps the case files. Once, twice, thrice. Let's discuss the Rubbery corpse's pronunciation. Slobgollion? Slobgollion? What is Mr. McIntosh trying to say? It sounds like Slobgollion to me, but somehow I doubt that our friend is referring to clumps of spermacety. If that's even the word he's attempting to pronounce, it must mean something else. He studies the documents that Mr. McIntosh slapped. What is it about these files? The crime scenes were already analysed, but fresh eyes might be in order. Florence and Florence in Vale Garden, 131C. Child Cake Street in Spite. The wreck of the SS Halcyon, still lodged on the bank of the river near Watchmaker's Hill. The implacable detective writes down each address. If nothing else, you'll learn more about our subject's movements prior to his death. Meanwhile, she says, examining her handkerchief again, I have something to analyse myself. Visit the crime scenes in Vale Garden, Spite and Watchmaker's Hill. After you've thoroughly examined each location, report back here to the implacable detective. Let's step away from the conversation and pay another visit to the morgue. It might be worthwhile to see the victims themselves. Oh, unlike most cadavers in London, these four haven't returned to life, nor have they shown any signs of stirring. You'll be able to interview them properly, but you can still examine their remains. The conciliatory coroner leads you through Concord Square's morgue, pulling sheets from the slabs. Which poor souls would you like to see? Let's see Miss Florence and Miss Florence, business partners as well as identical twin sisters. Identical in every way. Both corpses are still encrusted with amber jewellery. It glimmers and gleams with a horrible liveliness, in the coroner's words. Made even more horrible, wouldn't you say, when it's nestled against such cold, dead flesh. The coroner does not enjoy how their pendants pulse and their bracelets throb. Evidence of trauma. Here, here, and here. 2 blows to the back of the skull. Bruises around the throat. Around both throats. Bruises shaped like suction cups. Let's have a look at Officer K, an undercover operative working for Concord Square. The conciliatory coroner understands if you need a moment. Smelling salts? No. How adorable. Even endearing. But no. They won't address what's worse about this corpse. Curdled is the word written on the report. It's a small word to contain so much flesh. Prolonged submersion in the water will do the most jaw-dropping things to a human body. Like the rest of him, Officer K's head and shoulders haven't quite dissolved yet. You can still see the mottled bruises around his throat. Unsurprisingly, the bruises follow a suction cup pattern. Okay, Captain Whittaker. The SS Halcyon was his faithful ship. Merciful heavens. There's murder, and then there's this. The effects of black coral, according to the coroner. Apparently it's sharp enough to slice away entire limbs, both arms. One at the elbow and one at the shoulder, gone. Prior to being dredged from the stolen river, the currents evidently dragged Captain Whittaker's corpse along the bottom and across the coral. But do you see his neck? The coroner helpfully draws your attention to the suction cup-shaped bruises. Before this man went underwater, he was already dead. With all that bloating, he must have been underwater a while. Let's step away from the slabs. Let's return to the courtyard. And I think I'm going to end this first episode here. In the next episode, we shall go and see the crime scenes and find out if we can find more information about what's happening. I love a good investigation. I love these stories. Anything that revolves around the police and investigations, I'm very much in. And if you would like to see more of this, please subscribe. It really does help me. Like the video if you want to please the algorithm. I'm fighting a very hard fight with my long form content. It's not what is very popular on YouTube, and if you do like it, I'd very much appreciate it if you press the like button and subscribe to the channel. It means very much to me, and if you really want to help, become a member of the channel, support me on Ko-fi. But as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.